You've seen the drawings. The hunched, grunting caveman, a club in one hand, a blank stare, a creature that eats, sleeps, survives, and nothing more. That's the story we tell about the people who came before us. Simple, empty, barely awake. Now look at this. A body curled on its side in a shallow grave. And every inch of it, the skin, the bones, the beads laid around it, soaked in a deep blood-red powder. For 200 years, we called that decoration paint, a primitive splash of color on the dead. We were wrong. That red isn't art. It might be the oldest surviving piece of evidence for an idea so powerful it still quietly runs your life today. Because those simple people weren't decorating a corpse. They were trying to bring it back. This is the story of red ochre, a smear of iron-rich dirt that turns out to be the fingerprint of the very first thing human beings ever believed. Not a tool, not a weapon, a thought about death. And once you see what that red was really for, you will never look at a funeral, or your own hands, the same way again. Let's start with where it shows up, because that's the first clue this was never random. Go to a cave called Qafzeh in what is now northern Israel. Archaeologists digging there found the remains of up to 15 people, some of the earliest members of our own species ever discovered. And scattered through those graves, 71 lumps of red ochre. Not in the trash, not by the cooking fire, right next to the bodies. Now here's the number that should stop you. You clicked on this thinking 45,000 years ago. That alone is almost unimaginable. Before farming, before writing, before the wheel. But the bodies at Qafzeh are older than that. Much older, somewhere between 90 and 100,000 years old. Let that sink in. 90,000 years ago, before your ancestors had ever planted a single seed, someone knelt over the body of a person they loved and reached for the red. And they didn't just grab whatever dirt was lying around. They went looking for that exact color. Here's how we know. In 2003, an archaeologist named Irela Havers ran the Qafzeh ochre through geochemical analysis, chemical fingerprinting of the rock itself. And what she found rewrites the whole picture. The reddest ochre wasn't the most common pigment nearby. It wasn't the easiest to get. Out of every shade available to them, these people specifically chose the reddest ones. They mined it. They carried it. They ground it into powder. Think about what that means. In a world where every calorie was a fight to stay alive, where nothing was ever wasted, they spent time and energy hunting down one particular color of dirt to put on someone who was already dead. You don't do that for decoration, you do that for a reason that mattered more than food. So here's the question the rest of this video answers. Of all the colors on Earth, why red? Why always everywhere red? To understand the answer, you have to do something uncomfortable. You have to watch someone die. When a living body becomes a dead one, the change your ancestors saw, long before biology, before medicine, was color. A living person is warm and flushed, blood in the cheeks, blood under the skin. Then life leaves, and the body goes pale, gray, cold. The red drains out. To an ancient mind, watching this happen again and again, the message would have been simple and absolute. The red is the life. When the red is in you, you're alive. When it runs out, you're gone. Blood is red. Life is red. Death is the color leaving. Now, what would you do if you believed that with your whole heart and someone you loved went gray and cold in your arms? You would try to put the red back. That deep crimson powder wasn't paint. It was blood. Symbolic blood, a mineral kind that would never dry up or wash away. They packed it around the body, over the skin, into the grave, as if they could pour the life force back into someone it had abandoned. A color that meant you are not finished. Stay warm. Come back. That is the plot twist hiding inside a lump of dirt. Red ochre is the color of blood, used as a tool. The first technology human beings ever built to fight death itself. Now, I have to be honest with you. We can't ask them what they were thinking. Nobody left a note. But when the exact same act shows up on body after body, across continents, across tens of thousands of years, the pattern starts to speak for itself. And once you see it this way, the graves stop being sad little piles of bones. They start looking like something else entirely. Like ceremonies. Like belief you can hold in your hand, and nowhere is that clearer or stranger than at a place called Sungir. Sungir is a burial site on the edge of a Russian plain, around 34,000 years old. And if the smear of red at Qafzeh was a whisper, Sungir is a scream. In the ground there, archaeologists found two children, buried head to head, laid out with impossible care. And on and around those two small bodies, they counted more than 10,000 beads, each one hand-carved from mammoth ivory. Slow down on that. Modern researchers tried to recreate the beads and estimated that a single one took around 45 minutes to make. More than 10,000 beads. Do the math, and you're looking at over 10,000 hours of work. Years of a human life spent carving tiny slivers of tusk to bury in the ground with two dead children. And every last bead and both children beneath them was drenched in red ochre. You do not do this for the dead if you think the dead are gone. Nobody pours years of labor into a body they believe is simply meat in the dirt. You only do this if you believe, with everything you have, that the child is still someone, that they are going somewhere, and that the red and the ivory and the care will help them get there. That isn't decoration. That is a prayer you can hold in your hands. But the single most revealing grave of all wasn't understood by an ancient mourner. It was dug up by a man who got it completely wrong, which is exactly why it proves the point. In 1823, in a cave in Wales, a clergyman named William Buckland uncovered a skeleton stained deep red with ochre, lying beside a mammoth skull, dressed in ivory and seashell ornaments. Buckland took one look at the red and the jewelry and decided, obviously, that this was a woman. Probably he guessed someone from Roman times. He named the skeleton the Red Lady of Paviland. He was wrong about almost everything. The Red Lady is a young man, and he is not 2,000 years old. He is around 33,000 years old, the oldest ceremonial burial ever found in Western Europe. Here's the irony that should give you chills. Buckland was an educated man of science. He looked at that red-drenched grave and saw only a costume, a decoration, a misread label. He missed it entirely. But the people who actually buried that young man, the primitive ones, 33,000 years before him, they understood something Buckland didn't. They understood that death demands an answer, that you cannot just let a person vanish into the ground and turn away. So they gave him the red. They gave him the color of blood, of warmth, of life. And they laid him down facing whatever came next, with everything they thought he'd need. Stack it all together, Qafzeh, Sungir, Paviland, and dozens of graves like them. And one staggering fact emerges. Before humans built a single temple, before we wrote one word, planted one field, or spoke the name of one god, we were already doing this, already refusing to accept that dead means gone, already painting the color of life back onto the bodies of the people we'd lost. That red smear is the oldest fossil we have of a human belief. It may well be the birth certificate of religion itself, not carved into a book, but pressed into the dirt, in the color of blood. And this is the part that reaches up out of the ground and touches you. Because you do this too. When someone you love dies, you don't just leave them. You wash them and dress them and lay flowers on the grave. You say, "Rest in peace." You stand in front of a stone with their name on it and talk to it, as if they can hear. You can't help it. It's wired into you. That instinct, the refusal to let the dead simply be gone, did not begin with your religion, or your culture, or your century. It began with a handful of grieving people, 90,000 years ago, staring at a body that had gone cold, reaching into the earth for the reddest thing they could find, and using it to say the oldest sentence in the human heart. You are not finished. So the next time you picture that cartoon caveman, the club, the blank stare, the empty eyes, remember the red. Remember that the very same hands you imagine dragging a club also once cradled the dead, and grieved, and hoped, and built an entire invisible idea about what happens after the last breath. an idea that all of us are still living inside right now. They weren't simple. They were the first people who ever looked death in the face and answered back. If a smear of red dirt just changed how you see 45,000 years of human history, then you already understand why this channel exists. To find the enormous ideas hiding inside the ordinary. Stick around. There are stranger ones than this. Same red, same silence, the same question we've been answering since before we could speak.